Tonight on ICTV Reports, a city in motion, Ithaca, New York as a place that never stops. With 30,000 people and 3 institutions of higher education in the city limits, we explore the vibrant stories of this community. First, a look at the LGBTQIA+ community. Local drag performers tell their stories, sharing how they look to educate, inspire, and entertain.
Drag is always political. It doesn't matter if you're doing a number about farts. Drag is a political art form. It just is.
Then shifting our focus to Ithaca as a hub for new ideas, an exploration into the top innovative spaces and innovators, many of which are brought to Ithaca by Cornell University.
There's a lot of things here that make Ithaca great, but what we do is, if we can help companies start and be successful and grow in Ithaca, that's a win.
And later, the debate on free transportation. TCAT bus service outlining why fare-free rides are currently impossible. Advocates speaking out against the decision.
We're all about providing service to the public, and I feel really bad about having to reduce service that we intended to schedule and have had in place.
Finally, a new era for politics, the race for mayor of Ithaca. A sit-down interview with Democratic candidate last serving on the Common Council as he shares his vision for the future of the city.
And I think there's a lot of important precedent that's going to be set and a lot of important relationship balancing that's going to be needing to happen. And I'm eager to take on that challenge.
All that and more tonight on ICTV Reports. Good evening and welcome to ICTV Reports. I'm your host, Grant Johnson. Storytime, brunch, fashion, reality TV shows, and even Broadway. Drag has become a cultural phenomenon across the country, but recently the shows and their performers have become political targets. Since the start of the year, at least 417 anti-LGBTQ bills have been introduced in state legislatures across the United States, and that number is more than double the previous year. While none of these bills have passed here in New York State, it's still a fear for drag performers every time they walk on that stage. I sat down with several Ithaca drag queens who taught me a bit about the art, the performance, and the community that they've built along the way. Every time Femme de Violet steps on the stage at the Range, she comes to the bar with a message.
We have so much more in common with the people around us than we do with the people who want to destroy us.
A message, some high heels, a bedazzled hat, and a voice that becomes the loudest in the room.
Drag really changed my life. I've always been very tall, I've always been bigger, I've always been louder, I've always been opinionated. But finding community through drag was really special because I finally felt like people weren't approaching me with the attitude of well, you're hard to work with because you have too many opinions, but people genuinely gravitated toward me.
When she walks on stage, she becomes all the things she's been told in the past not to be. The Ithaca College theater student embraces it all when she's on stage.
I think generally people are just really pumped to also be able to dress however they want and act however they want and know that they're not the farthest weird person in the room because there are people paid to be weird.
Tilia Cordata, a veteran Ithaca drag performer, says the more weird, the better. She works as a researcher at Cornell University during the day and produces drag shows at the Range at night.
Drag is making mockery of so much of what queer folks are, attacked for. Gender presentation, clothes, looks, voice, appearance, we take that and we go, well, let's make fun of it. Let's be well, yeah, this is all stupid. This is all silly.
Zora is a Cornell University environmental science major who participates in the shows alongside Tilia and Femme.
When I was exploring this art form as a queer teenager, I really took to drag because it blended so many things that I liked that were a part of my personal life and my culture, like Brazilian carnival and figure skating in terms of performance and aesthetic. And when they came together, I was just wow, this is really cool.
At Ithaca College, another performer was able to begin drag just after graduating.
Going to Ithaca College, is actually where, I discovered my own personal identity, as a gay man out of drag. So being able to venture off, and seeing how that identity is celebrated in the Ithaca community was really important to me.
Quintessential, who now works for the college, describes Ithaca as a place welcoming to the LGBTQIA+ community.
And it's honestly a great privilege that, you know, in the Ithaca area especially, that we have a space that supports new art and is willing to, you know, lift every voice if possible in the room, to showcase, you know, the ideas that different people have.
I'd say Ithaca in general is a great community to hone in my drag. There's a lot of great performers and entertainers here that I can learn a lot from, band together to like support the community.
She is me, I am her, we are one.
While Ithaca's drag community does create a safe space for queer people, performers like Femme de Violet worry about attacks on the art every time they go on stage.
Oh, it's something I'm terrified of. Everyone, the attitude within Ithaca is like, it can't happen here. No one's gonna bother us here. But like, these people are so full of hate and have been so radicalized that they will come and they will cause a scene. Drag is always political. It doesn't matter if you're doing a number about farts. Drag is a political art form. It just is. So because of that, you're always kind of assuming the risk of like danger and perception.
In March, Tennessee became the first to pass a law limiting drag performers, and many other states are looking to follow its lead. While Ithaca's drag queens aren't worried about being banned from performing in New York, they still rally around their community.
In my opinion, there are just so many other issues out there. For there to be like effort, energy, and legislation being crafted towards diminishing and harming queer people and queer youth across America, it's really disheartening.
It's old people bullying young defenseless children. Oh, I'm not gonna ruin my makeup. And it just makes me very fortunate to be where I am, you know, here in Ithaca, where we can all embrace each other, but also be able to still perform our art and, you know, generate income so that we can support those communities in need for us to help lift them up.
Every time these 4 Ithaca drag queens lace up their boots and put on their makeup, they're doing it to become the loudest voice in the room, because others in the LGBTQIA+ community aren't able to do so. For ICTV Reports, I'm Grant Johnson. Coming up after the break, correspondent Aubren Villasenor learns more about innovation spaces in the city. We'll be right back. Innovation is in Ithaca's roots. In 2018, it was named among the top 20 most innovative cities in the U.S. by USA Today. Between Ithaca College, Cornell University, and various spaces for business incubators and startups, this might not be a surprise. Correspondent Aubren Villasenor visits top-ranked innovation spaces in the city and speaks with innovators, entrepreneurs, and experts about why Ithaca is a hub for new ideas.
There's something about Ithaca that from the get-go I felt safe making that my brand, making inclusivity my brand.
This is Olivia Carpenter, a young entrepreneur in Ithaca who is the founder and operator of Via's Cookies. She says the Ithaca community is what keeps her business thriving.
The Ithaca community came out for me because 1, I have a good product, but 2, I'm also giving back.
As a Black, low-income student at a predominantly white institution, she experienced challenges. For Carpenter, the road for running her business is not without challenges. She came from a low-income household, is a one-person team, and her profit margins are slim. Still, she continues baking, supported by the community around her.
People are super accepting here. They push me to go forward. They are constantly telling me like, you're amazing, you're amazing. Even when I make mistakes, they're like, it is okay.
In 2021, in an effort to support small businesses, the Tompkins County Chamber of Commerce announced the creation of a new micro-enterprise grant, which would provide $300,000 to a small business to support its operations. The community of support spans across the city of Ithaca and many business sectors. At Rev Startup Works, located on State Street, Director Ken Roth is dedicated to supporting innovation within the city, especially in the tech world.
So Rev is a business incubator. We've been around, this is our 9th year of operation. We've been around and we help companies sort of figure out their business idea, sort of solidify it, launch it, and grow it.
Rev Startup Works was created in 2014 as a partnership between the three educational institutions of the Ithaca area: Ithaca College, Cornell University, and Tompkins Cortland Community College. The organization serves to centralize entrepreneurial resources within the city of Ithaca. Recent startups supported by Rev have served markets from the agricultural to the tech world. Rachel McRae, former TV personality and current CEO and founder of Wisely, a smart Tupperware company, says Rev gave her the tools to live out her second act as an entrepreneur, something she never imagined doing.
I came from television. I didn't know anything about being a hardware entrepreneur, and they kind of give you a roadmap and give you the book. Ken Rother, who's the director of the program here, will always tell you, he's going to teach you to fish. He's not going to fish for you.
McRae entered the business world during the COVID-19 pandemic. She earned her Women's Entrepreneurial Certificate in Business at Cornell University, which brought her to Ithaca and connected her to Rev. Using the networks created by Rev, McRae says she's expecting her product to enter the market this May.
Just in a year, we've gone from having a simple prototype to something that we can put onto the market in mass scale.
McRae, like Carpenter, says the supportive community of Ithaca is what attracts her to the city. She's developed a personal connection with Ithaca.
Ithaca is a place that my husband and I have even talked about, maybe we should move here. There's so much innovation and there's such a vast ecosystem that other people don't have. And I think that really you guys are on the cutting edge of a lot.
Rother says to him and many others within Rev Startup Works in the city of Ithaca, every time a small business succeeds, it's a win.
What we do here helps make Ithaca better. There's a lot of things here that make Ithaca great, but what we do is, if we can help companies start and be successful and grow in Ithaca, that's a win.
From cookies to smart Tupperware, if there's an idea, there's a space for it to grow in the city of Ithaca. In Ithaca, I'm Aubren Villasenor, ICTV reports.
Thank you, Aubren, for that story. Still to come, correspondent Anna Buckles investigates the debate over whether TCAT can become fare-free. What will the future of transportation look like in Ithaca? Stay tuned. Keeping Ithaca and Tompkins County connected with public transportation is no easy task. But if you're a resident, you've likely caught a ride on the Tompkins Consolidated Area Transits, otherwise known as TCAT. A report conducted from July to December last year by the TCAT Planning Committee analyzed the financial feasibility of the organization to offer free rides for residents. The TCAT board voted to approve the report, which concluded that going fare-free is, quote, not feasible and not recommended at this time. In recent months, the debate over whether to make the transit free has increased through efforts such as the Free Cat campaign, pushing for free rides and expanded service. Correspondent Anna Buckles speaks with the group running the campaign to investigate their efforts and talks to the general manager of TCAT to learn more about why they say now is not the time for free rides.
Ithaca residents are constantly on the move, whether hiking a waterfall, visiting local shops in the Commons, or walking around a campus. And in order to get to these destinations, the most popular way to get around town is catching a ride on the Tompkins Consolidated Area Transit, or TCAT. For over 30 years, TCAT has been delivering transportation to Ithaca, as well as its surrounding counties, even serving the community throughout the COVID-19 pandemic.
We're all about providing service to the public, and I feel really bad about having to reduce service that we intended to schedule and have had in place.
This is Scott Vanderpool, TCAT's general manager.
The pandemic's put us in a bad place with our drivers, and it's really about getting the bus operators back in place right now.
He explains that due to the COVID-19 pandemic, TCAT is now facing severe issues like decreased ridership and staff shortages, forcing the company to reduce its services, such as reducing the frequency buses run, as well as changing and eliminating routes. However, these constraints have not gone unnoticed by Ithaca residents.
FreeCat's mission is to have fare-free and expanded TCAT services in Tompkins County.
Meet Sabrina Letty. She is the chair of the Free Cat campaign run by Ithaca's Democratic Socialists of America chapter, a group pushing for fare-free TCAT rides.
So the goal is both fare elimination and also route expansion, and that may involve more frequent stops at stops that already exist, on lines that already exist, but also the expansion or creation of new lines that go to more rural areas that are currently underserved and leave people with reduced access to transit.
In response to the Free Cat campaign, TCAT released a report stating that going fully fare-free is not possible at this time.
First of all, I support fare-free. I'd love to do it if we had the capability to do it. The problem right now is really about bus operators. We are having a lot of trouble getting bus operators in place, and that's important to us because we can't. Fare-free service would mean that we would have to provide extra buses.
In order for TCAT to become fully fare-free, the answer lies with employing more bus operators in the near future. Letty explains the importance of protecting workers' rights throughout the process of going fully fare-free.
We want all of these simultaneously to be not at the expense of the TCAT workers themselves that are already underpaid and overworked. We want to make sure that the additional burden, the additional work that's going to be necessary to have expanded transit and free transit is not going to be felt by the current body of workers, that their workforce will expand, that they'll take on more drivers and mechanics, and that they'll pay them a fair wage so that they're able to do this and service the community comfortably.
Although the Free Cat campaign is frustrated by the limited routes TCAT provides for residents outside the city, TCAT recently received a grant that will only help extend these services.
The big part for TCAT is on demand. So on demand really is getting to places where a 40-foot bus can't get to. And the West Hill, it's a hilly area, and it really is the ability to take people from point A to point B instead of having to walk down the hill or get to the bus stop. So it's going to be smaller vehicles in the West Hill area that are going to be able to get people to essential services.
Vanderpool is optimistic for the future of TCAT's extended services.
I would say maybe 2 to 3 years we'd be in I'm hoping 2 or 3 years we'd be in a position to really start talking about fare-free service again.
Until then, the Free Cat campaign continues to fight for change within the services of TCAT, stating just how crucial public transportation is to being a moving part of Ithaca.
We want the local government to recognize that this is the will of their constituents, that this is what the residents want, this is what they want public transit to look like.
Reporting in Ithaca, I'm Anna Buckles.
Thank you, Anna, for that story. Coming up next, ICTV's Ryan Harmon sits down with Robert Cantelmo, one of the 2 candidates in the race for Ithaca's mayoral seat. Stay with us. A change of leadership is coming to the city of Ithaca. In January, acting mayor Laura Lewis announced that she was not seeking re-election. Shortly after, aldersperson Robert Cantelmo put his bid in for office. Flash forward to April, it's a race of 2. As for Cantelmo, who's a Democrat in the Working Party, he's facing off against Republican nominee Daniel Medina. According to his campaign, Robert hopes to address workforce and economic development, housing, public safety, and the Ithaca Green New Deal. Correspondent Ryan Harmon sits down with Cantelmo to learn more about the candidate and discusses what he hopes to achieve and how he plans to address those issues if elected mayor.
We've got some really, really lofty goals. It's time to roll up our sleeves and make sure that the work gets done.
Common Council member and Cornell PhD student Robert Cantelmo is running for mayor. I sat down to discuss what he wants to see change in the community, and he talks about the unique opportunity he has as the city introduces a city manager position.
The day-to-day implementation and administration of city government will be now charged to a professional administrator who reports to the mayor and council. And I think this is a really important moment for the city, because for this transition to succeed, you need to have someone who understands the intention behind what that change was. And I think there's a lot of important precedent that's going to be set and a lot of important relationship balancing that's going to be needing to happen. And I'm eager to take on that challenge.
Cantelmo explains how he believes he's the right candidate to navigate the changes of the role, which includes tackling an issue that has been on many Ithaca residents' minds.
I know when you first announced your candidacy, you talked a lot about public safety. So what do you want to try and do to get Ithaca to have an official, formal police chief?
Back in January, council authorized funding for an executive search firm to help us lead the search for a police chief. I'm really optimistic that we're going to get some great candidates, and I think that the community itself is going to be very, receptive of getting that right person in the role so that we can continue to start actualizing some of the policy that we've been discussing.
Cantelmo hopes the community will rally around the new chief and discusses other ways he will gain community support.
I think time and again you see that some of the most pernicious threats to democracy are these attacks on long-standing institutions, on our democratic norms, and our sort of respect for the process as a whole.
Cantelmo explained his support for open conversation across party lines. He cites what took place in Tennessee just weeks ago.
And I think people need to constantly remember that the most important piece of our system is the ability to have different ideas. If you start to say that one side is, the enemy of the people, right? Because they're asking questions, because they're leveling critiques, that leads you down a really dangerous road. And we've seen this not just in the United States, we've seen this, around the world. We've seen it, unfortunately, most recently in Tennessee, where the idea of pushing back on unpopular policy, that act of dissent doesn't just engender debate, but actually engenders a really hostile response from the majority in that case that led to the expulsion of 2 of those members.
Cantelmo served as the Director of Democratic Threats and Resilience Initiative at Cornell University, which led to my next question that brought up a divisive issue for Ithaca residents: how much Cornell University pays for taxes. Cantelmo says that the tax exemptions, such as those granted to Cornell University, can limit the city.
Our Department of Public Works superintendent has told me that roads have about a lifespan of 20 years. So what that means is that a city really should be replacing 5% of its roads every year, so that you're never really falling behind on your maintenance. Right now, Ithaca is about 1%. And this is largely, because the city is really limited in the revenue that it can bring in. About half of the property value in the city, $3 billion, is tax exempt.
Cantelmo stated that Cornell has an operating budget that is over $5 billion and says we need to reevaluate the relationship between the community and university partners. We also discussed how Ithaca reevaluated its carbon emissions through the Green New Deal.
Right. I think an important piece of this is not just the electrification and decarbonization. It is, but it's the Green New Deal.
He hopes the city can continue to be a leader in decarbonization, but also push for new solutions.
One, it's really important, again, for this transition to the city manager relationship to go well. I would say the second thing, right, is following through on public safety reform in the Green New Deal. And then the last thing is the housing piece. I mean, we want to keep this community one that is welcoming for everyone, whether you are here just for your 4 years of school, whether you're like me and you move here and decide to stay, or whether you were born here and you grow up here and this is where you want to spend your life.
Mr. Cantelmo, thank you very much for sitting down with me. Is there anything else that you'd like to add before we end this conversation?
Absolutely. I would just say one of the most important things that's going to happen in the next few months is the Democratic primary in the city. And while I don't have a primary opponent, there are a number of really important races happening in the wards around the city, and I would really encourage your viewers to dig into those issues now, to learn the candidates, and figure out who can best represent them, because one of the biggest challenges, again, in being a democracy is getting that engagement. And so bringing attention to the fact that there are some important conversations happening and some contested races, dig in.
For ICTV Reports, I'm Ryan Harmon.
Thank you, Ryan. We attempted to reach Republican candidate Daniel Medina for the story, but no formal campaign has been set up, so we were unable to make contact with him. Election Day is on November 7th this year. That's all for ICTV Reports this season. To see more exclusive content from this episode, follow us on Twitter and Instagram. I want to say my most sincere thank you to the team behind this incredible season of ICTV Reports. You breathed life into the show, and we told amazing stories together, connecting Ithaca and Tompkins County. For one last time, I'm your host, Grant Johnson. Have a great night.